you start to see what they're capable of and the evil that's in this world. And for me, I think that's when I stopped dreaming like that. You're not responsible for yourself anymore. You're responsible for the health, well-being, the teaching, the guiding. I saw the reasoning behind why these people are in the position that they're at. Okay. You know what I mean? And guess what? 85% of them, guess what it stems from? Having no father at home. For me, I think it would be the ability to effectively and lovingly care for others and yourself.
All right, welcome to the Rad Dad Podcast. This is episode 35. I have Ryle Williams here. We've never actually met. This is our first time, but I just hit you up on Instagram through some mutual friends and stuff. So glad to have you here.
I appreciate you, man. Thank you.
Just to start off, tell me a little bit about your childhood, like some highlights and where you grew up.
Oh man, where do I start? So I'm originally from Kansas City, Missouri. Well, a small farm town about an hour north of Kansas City. It's called Savannah, Missouri. I grew up out there. Maybe 3,000 people in my whole hometown. And man, it was like every other farm kid from the Midwest that grew up. You know, you grow up, you work, you do your sports. Everybody's doing football, basketball, baseball, and then the other sports are kind of supplemental, right? So for me, you know, it was a very I hate saying it was a very normal childhood, because for me, growing up, I grew up LDS, right? And out there, it's not like it is out here. Mm-hmm. So I'm one of, I want to say we had 4 kids talking from high school all the way down to 5th grade, maybe 4 Mormon kids, right? And I wasn't close with any of them. All of our ages were very different, and so I didn't really have a church friend group, or that I had a solid friend group, but it wasn't in that sense. Yeah. And then you come out here and you start seeing, it's totally opposite, where it's not a bad thing, right? It's just very different for me to see. It's so different. You see how much different it is, and the dynamic. And then, like I said, I grew up out there, graduated high school, came out here to Utah, met my ex-wife. As I was going to go back and do college track out in the Midwest at Kansas State, and she didn't want to move. So I got stuck out here post-mission, and she didn't want to move. So I just went to Utah Valley, and then I kind of got to see what school was like. Like I said, opposite of what I grew up. You know what I mean? It seemed like everybody was LDS. Utah Valley High. Yeah. That's what we call it. That's what it felt like, man. Yeah. And so, like I said, it wasn't a bad experience. It was certainly a learning experience. I mean, if I could go back and do things different, I definitely would. But yeah, I mean, kind of taking another step back to, where I grew up and how I grew up, right? Sorry to jump around like that, but no, you're good. My father was, in the stake presidency. He was a bishop. He was a school administrator. He's a principal. Worked as a football. I'm sorry, not everybody, everything but football. He worked as a basketball, volleyball. He's a coach. And so, my mom, she was a radiology technician all growing up. So we were always very busy. I have 4 sisters. 3 of them are older than me. And then I have 1 younger sister. And so all of us did sports. Okay. So man, we were always running, going.
Sounds like the kind of the all-American family.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was fun. We got more serious about the sports and everything whenever it was me and my youngest sister, because we were the last 2 in the house. Mm-hmm. And so once my older sisters were out, then my parents really decided who their favorites were. So they picked us. So
cool. What was your relationship like with your dad? My dad, you're like speaking my language, because my dad was a high school principal for 22 years.
Oh, so you understand, you get it.
Yeah. And then he coached football and wrestling, coached all my little league teams all growing up. So all. I know, like, there's this gray area between coach and father. So I want to pick your brain on this. It's funny because I'm going through that right now. But before I talk about myself and my sons right now, me coaching them, I'm going to talk about what you're talking about. Yeah. With my father and him being my coach and everything. It was very it was hard. Yeah. It was really hard growing up like that, because it felt like it was not me against my dad, but it was like whatever I did, there was always more that I could have done in his eyes, right? Mm-hmm. So if I'm sitting there, say I had 25 points, 9 rebounds, and 4 assists in a basketball game, that's a great game. Yeah. Dad's like, well, if you'd box out, you'd got that 10th rebound, you had double, that kind of stuff. Yeah. Right. There's always something else. Or, hey, you missed this free throw, you need to work on free throws, instead of just being like, that was, you did amazing. That was awesome. Right. Yeah. And growing up, and that was one thing for me that I really wanted. Like, 'cause my mom gave that to me all the time, but I wanted dad to be the one to hype me up and everything. Yeah. And so, you know, and I've talked to him about this. It's dad, if you watch this, we've already had this conversation, but, I just told him, lately within the last probably 3 years, that was one thing that I really wanted. And if I could go back and have something else in my life, that's what I want. I would want my dad to be my hype man, you know?
Yeah.
But him being the principal and the coach, his thing was, okay, well, we're not friends first. I'm your father first. And which I totally understand that. And I agree. But at some point, the son gets to a level of maturity or certain achievement where they're like, well, I need something else. You know what I mean? Because you can be as successful as you want, especially where I grew up, not a big school. And I don't want to sound arrogant, but I was a very top tier athlete nationwide. I mean, I was being recruited a lot, and all I wanted was, I just kind of got complacent, you know? And so instead of me pursuing basketball or football, I just went and did track because it was the easy thing. And my dad loved it. My dad loved track for whatever reason. So for me, that's what he got excited about. I was like, cool, I'll go do track. And so, yeah, man, it's, you know, kind of a long answer to a short question, but for me, that's kind of the dynamic between my father and I back then. And now things are very different. You know, our relationship, man, it's, because I'm not in the church anymore, you know. It's got nothing to do with the church itself. It's just, you know, personal things, you know, that I've dealt with, and so I talked to my dad, and we have a great relationship now. You know, we talk about things. I mean, he calls me almost every day. You know, he lives up in Ogden now. Okay, he moved out here. His dad's up there, so we talk all the time. He comes down, supports my son's, you know, games and everything, and so I'm very appreciative. I've seen, you know, I mean, just growing up, I've seen my own friends that didn't have, it's not that they didn't have a great support system, but it was their dad was neither one of the things that what I had, you know what I mean? 'Cause my dad was either the best coach or the best church leader or the best, you know, best father. Yeah. And I see some of these guys who, first off, don't even have a dad, and that's heartbreaking. Yeah. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I don't know, man. I am very lucky that I was able to have a father, you know, growing up. He was supportive, and he did love me, and he worked his tail off for me and my sisters and my mom. So I'm very thankful for that. And then now I'll kind of step into me and my oldest son, Kai. So Kai's 9 years old. He just turned 9 on October 21st, and he's playing tackle football for the first time this year, first time in his life.
So is he
third grade? Third grade. Yep.
God, they started him in third now.
Well, yeah, and that's what I was like. Well, okay, we'll try it out. So and he seems to like it, man. We got him in there, and I'm one of the coaches, and I have to catch myself because I find myself getting not frustrated, but I am a lot harder on my son because I know that he's mentally tough enough to take it. Yeah, yeah. And so I find myself getting after him a little bit more because I expect a lot more out of him. But then when I get, you know, when I get home or when I get done, I'm like, you know what, I'm doing exactly what my father did to me when I wasn't about it. Does that make sense? Yeah. Like,
so are you trying to turn the switch off? Once practice and games are over, I'm not coach.
Well, it's
how do you balance it?
Even during practice, I'll say something, then I kind of step back and I'll be like, okay, this is not my time to, you know, I need to chill out. I can coach him the same way I coach every other kid. I'm Coach Ryle, and, you know, instead of, oh, that, you know, that's my son, you know, I'm his dad, so I'm going to be on him. So if I talk to the other coaches, and they're great. I don't know do you know who like Taft Morley is and all those? Yeah. So Taft is Taft's son plays on my son's team. Okay. And so I'll kind of have Taft, you know, be like, hey, can you talk to Kai about this? You know what I mean? Yeah. And so I think it's beneficial, you know, but the first, not to sound cliche, the first step is recognizing, you know what I mean? That hey, there's you got to simmer down, you got to relax. Yeah. And remember, he's just a kid, and he's just human, right? So,
the cool part is you're recognizing this when he's 9,
right?
And you have all these years ahead of you to develop him as an athlete and a young man. So,
right. No question.
I mean, the best thing we can wish for is for our kids to have a better life than we did, right?
That's it.
And I'm sure your dad will really appreciate your effort, you know, seeing that ripple through generations. So
yeah,
that's cool.
That was the one thing I always talked to my ex about, was like, I mean, it's a great relationship, me and my ex, you know, it was very amicable, but, you know, for us, it was, she grew up, her dad was a doctor, she didn't really have to, there wasn't a lot of financial struggle or anything there for us. I mean, you know what it's like when your father grows up and as a teacher or anything else, there's a little bit more caution involved financially. And so for me, it's just, and it's not all about financial stuff, but it's like trying to give your kids, like you said, what you didn't have in the life, a better life than what you had. I think regardless of how your childhood was, that's the goal, right?
Yeah. So, I don't know if you can relate, but one thing I've come to the realization of in my adult life with my father is that he had the ability, and he has the ability and skills and capacity to help so many people that sometimes what needs to be sacrificed is his home life. And I'm not saying it was ever bad, but that's also a sacrifice that you've given, maybe some time with your father or better relationship for him to go out and help other people that need it more.
Yeah. It was,
I mean, think of all the athletes and students and youth. I mean,
that was the thing growing up that's a great point. It's a great point. I mean, my father, like I said, because you understand church callings, especially those higher level church callings, it's another job.
It's so demanding.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so just watching my dad always, my dad is a yes man and I'm a yes man. I got that from my father, and I don't know if I'd say it's a bad thing, but it'll definitely cause a strain in your life one way or another, on your business, on your family, on, whatever, because you want to go help those people, because when you go out of your way and you're able to make someone's day a little bit better, you know what I mean? There's something about that you're like, okay, that was awesome. I want to do that again.
Yeah.
And that's how my dad always was. I mean, and my dad he was such an integrous guy. I mean, I remember, and this kind of gets me emotional thinking about this, because made me so mad. Not just from a community standpoint. My father was he was a volleyball coach for the varsity volleyball team, and this is after I'd graduated high school, but he was coaching my little sister, and there was some illegal substitution that was made, and it was during it was district playoffs or districts, whatever it was, district championship. And my dad, he had made an illegal substitution, didn't realize it, so then two rotations down, he's like, so he stops the game and he goes and he tells the referee, the main one up on the stand, lets them know. And I don't know what they did, but it caused, I don't know if it was a forfeiture, but it caused them to lose the game and their season was done. Wow. And my dad, I just remember my dad was just distraught, but he caught a lot of flack from the community and the news, but it was all people that don't know my dad. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like they've never had a kid play for him.
Yeah.
My dad's never taught them, because everybody else that my dad has ever taught or coached, they were like, we would fully expect Coach Williams. Like they had his back 100%. And so I remember seeing the news articles and stuff, and man, it just made me so mad. Like how can you? That's
hard to see your dad getting thrown under the bus.
It's like, how can you fault someone for having that much integrity? It's such a weird thing to me. I mean, for me, if I was later on down the line, if I saw that and be like, hey, that's a person I'd want my kid playing for.
Yeah.
All day long.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So I don't know, man. It just, it kind of gets me all heated. It's an annoying thing to see. But I think those girls that played for him, I think they learned a lot from that. And I know my little sister did, so.
When did you lose the ability to dream like a child?
That's a good question. I don't know if I would say that I've lost the ability to, but when you start having so many different experiences in your life, you start seeing things, and you start seeing, kind of like for me, I know it's probably different for everybody, but for me, it's when I started seeing the evil in the world. It's not that I have post-traumatic stress or anything, but you start to see, hey, the world is not a super, I hate saying safe place, because depending on where you live, but you start to see what people are capable of, you know what I mean? And organizations and the government and governments, you know what I mean? Regardless of where you're at.
I'd like to take a moment to thank our sponsors. I'm just kidding. I don't have any sponsors. I'm a one-man show, but I would appreciate you liking and subscribing and following my journey on social media. I'm working hard to put out relevant and useful content for y'all, and your support means the world to me, and it keeps me going. So I really appreciate it.
You start to see what they're capable of and the evil that's in this world. And for me, I think that's when I stopped dreaming like that, because I was a pretty imaginative person. Even when I, when I got done with college track, I still remember myself being very, very positive, very, everything was very, hey, let's go. I'm ready to go. Very excited. But then when I started doing some of the stuff for, do you know who Tim Ballard is? Mm-hmm. So I did some stuff for him. Still do. And, you start to see what all's out there, and you're like, you become a little jaded.
Yeah.
And then I worked for Utah County Sheriff's Office, and it was just kind of the same thing.
Yeah. Was it different when you saw it in your own home area, like closer to home?
You talking like when I was a police officer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, did it hit you differently?
It did, but I think the biggest thing for me, the biggest change that I had in law enforcement, or the biggest change that law enforcement had on me, was the fact that the drugs are bad, and yes, all these other things are terrible. But for me, I saw the reasoning behind why these people are in the position that they're at. Okay. You know what I mean? And guess what? 85% of them, guess what it stems from? Having no father at home.
Really?
Without a doubt.
I was going to say like a broken home.
Broken home, without a doubt.
Yeah.
And, when I say broken home, it could be, hey, mom and dad are doing drugs inside the house, and the kid sees it. That's all they know. So, they kind of follow that same pattern. It could be that, or there's just, mom can only do so much. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if a son doesn't have any respect, no father figure, it's a dangerous, dangerous thing, man. So when you see a kid come out of that type of situation, in their past, and they come out strong and level-headed and they're dialed in, that's a freaking bad A kid. You know what I mean? That's a good dude.
Yeah.
You went through all that stuff with no father, fatherly figures, and you pulled out. That's a win. That's a win right there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a win in life.
Man, if there's one thing I've learned from doing this podcast, it's that the world needs more good men to have good kids. You know what I mean? Like there's so much toxicity and, like you said, evil in the world. But when a good man can bring up and raise good kids, I think that is what can spread, and that's what can change.
Absolutely. And expounding on that, that's one of my biggest goals, is to make sure that my kids are respectful and they're friendly. I even for myself, man. I mean, I'll just be the first one to say it. I wasn't. It's not that I wasn't the nicest kid, but it's not that I was the meanest kid, but I wasn't the nicest kid when I was in high school. And it's one of my biggest regrets that I have to this day, is not going out of my way more to help the kids that were being picked on. Cause I didn't go out and really pick on, I wasn't picking on kids or bullying. Yeah. I just didn't, I mean, I had the platform to be able to bring those kids in and stop them being picked on. And,
right.
And luckily, man, I was very, none of the kids ended up taking their lives or anything like that in high school. It was never that serious of bullying, but bullying at any capacity is just not it's not a good thing, right? Yeah. There's nothing good that can come from it. And so I try to teach my boys now, if there's someone getting picked on or, bullied, beat up, you need to stand up. And if I find out that you're the one doing it, that's another story. Yeah. And we'll have that conversation.
So talk me through your timeline from finishing up your athletic career to where you are now. Like, what have you done?
Yeah. So I got done with track and field at Utah Valley in 2015, 2016. They wouldn't honor a transfer, and which was crazy. I was number 8, 9 in the nation and in high jump, and they wouldn't honor it. And so I thought that was strange, but I didn't like track enough to keep dealing with it. And we had just had my first son, Kai, about 8 months before. And so for me, it was time to be a dad, time to be a man. And what that meant was going and finding a job, start paying bills, making sure everything's taken care of. And so I went and I sold cars at Murdoch, Linden, Hyundai, for a number of time, number of months. And, it was fine. You know how it is whenever you first get out and you're like, what do I do? Where am I supposed to go? I didn't have any connections out here. None. Yeah. And so I'm like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do, man. And, people could probably see the way that I have networked out here and say, oh, it's not an honest way to do it, or that's a terrible way to do it. But man, that's the one thing I will give myself is I'm resourceful. And so I started, my sister knew who Harvey Young is. Mm-hmm. So Harvey, he's one of my closest friends now, but she went to the same ward as him and Dennis Pitta and Austin Colley. I didn't know Harvey at all. Harvey didn't know me. So so whenever it was time for me to start getting, applying for jobs, I was like, oh yeah, no, my friend Harvey Young, you know him, he plays for, he played for BYU. He told me that I should put in my application. And they're like, oh, we love BYU. We love Harvey. And I'm like, yeah, he's great. And, so, it all started with Harvey, and I tell Harvey this all the time. I'm like, dude, thank you for not ever throwing me under the bus, because
it's a good thing you're friends now.
That's what I'm saying. I was like, you had my back. Yeah. And, so anyways, man, it started, that's how I started getting into the professional world, into the different career fields that I've been in. Was mainly through that. And, I was doing some odds and ends sales jobs here and there. And as I did those sales jobs, I focused on going and building those relationships, those other relationships, meaningful relationships, through networking. And all of a sudden it's crazy, because at one point they all come to a head, and whenever you start working for a certain company, you can bring in a lot of these different relationships into one. And whether they're athletes or business professionals, you can start bringing all these people in together. And then if you've built a good enough relationship with these guys, you don't apply for jobs anymore. They'll say, hey, listen, you need to talk to my boy Riley, or Riley, you need to go talk to so-and-so. Here's his number. It's very direct. I have my own company now, but over the last, 5-6 years, I haven't applied for a job.
Yeah.
Ever. You know what I mean? They wanted to see what I've done. So I gave them my resume, but all it is just saying, hey, these are my accomplishments. This is what I did at this company, this. And, it just happens to work out. But then after I got done with all that, I started doing the podcast. Right. And I was like, well, I was selling shooting ranges at the time, and I was doing really well. They were paying for my travel. So I was like, I'll kill two birds with one stone. So I started a podcast, and I know a lot of SEALs. And so I started talking to some of the SEALs, some of the bigger names, and they're like, yeah, come out to this event and this event. They gave me 2 events. I was like, okay, never met a SEAL in real life, but we'll go. So I took a big risk, and I paid for myself to go out. Did my first episode, my first episode in a hotel room with a couple of SEALs. And then, and that was an intense experience. It was like 3.5 hours. It was ridiculous. I'm
sure you were
I was floored. I was like, they're like, oh, they're like, hey, make sure you edit this out and this and this. And I'm like, are you being serious? They're like, yeah, you have to edit this out. I'm like, I don't even know I don't even know what software to use to edit. You know what I mean?
Just
I thought I could just record and just put it up and play. But, it was, and then from there, I got sick and tired of selling ranges and working for someone else. I thought to myself, I can make my own money. I can have my own company. So I started a company called Blackstone Solutions, and we do training facility installs for the military, law enforcement, commercial clients all across the United States. And it's been good, man. It's been good. And, it's one of those things where if I pick the podcast back up, that'd be great. But I don't have a whole lot of bandwidth to be able to do so right now. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, it's good. It's a trip, but just doing what I'm doing right now and just plugging away. It's hard. It's the most stressful thing I've ever done, but it's the most rewarding thing, for a lot of reasons. Yeah. So I feel very fortunate. Yeah. I'm very fortunate.
So if we were to type up a resume for you for the last 9+ years of fatherhood, what would some of your accomplishments be?
Also, that's another great question obviously the 3 big ones are going to be the 3 boys, right? Yeah. Having my kids in 2014, 2016, and then in 2019, those are hands down, far and away, biggest accomplishments I've ever had. I wouldn't even say as a father. I would just say in my life in general. It is obviously the hardest thing that I've ever had to do, but, because you're not responsible for yourself anymore. You're responsible for the health, well-being, the teaching, the guiding of 3 extra lives. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so it's a wild thing to think about when you start really, paying attention to the gravity of it. It's like, holy crap, man. It's crazy. But, as far as the other accomplishments, for me, the big ones are, and I hate always comparing myself to my father, but it's being able to make the time to be there for my boys and everything that they do, whether that's a school play or something like that in the middle of the day, being able to get over there and see it and support them. Because man, I'll tell you that the few times that I haven't been able to do that, it's the first thing they ask me whenever they see me is, how come you didn't come to the Harry Potter hat sorting day? And I was like, what? It's like, first off, I didn't know. Second off, I felt terrible. I'm like, I should have been there. Yeah. And so, I'd say being able to be there for all of the things that I've ever done for that my boys have ever done. It's a very big thing for me. And I think showing them the value of hard work, showing them, because I've gone through some crazy tough times with mental health, with financially, everything, and just showing the boys that everything's going to be okay. It works itself out one way or another. Mm-hmm. There's always people that you can talk to. And even as of late, going through the divorce, it's like talking to my oldest is the only one that really gets what's going on. Yeah. Or understood what was going on. He used to ask me questions all the time. About, hey, why are you and mom not married? Why, did something happen? And it's such a hard thing to explain to a 9-year-old, that people grow apart, because it doesn't make any sense to them. You know what I mean? Mom and dad have been boyfriend and girlfriend for 10 years. That's how they view it. They've been living together. And so it was really sad. And then just, I don't know, man, it's being strong for your boys in those times of trouble was hands down the hardest thing I have ever done. I mean, when we set the boys down, she couldn't talk, my ex, she couldn't talk. She was all choked up. And so of course, I'm trying to be dad, saying, okay, listen, boys, you go through this, you sit them down and they're just looking at you. They're confused. They don't know what's going on. And you say, hey, mom, mom and dad are, we're, you don't want to ever say, well, I didn't want to say divorce, because as soon as I would have said that, I'd have just bawled. But just saying, hey, mom and dad are not going to be husband and wife anymore. And just trying to explain that to them was just so hard, man. It was such a hard thing to say. They didn't understand, The two younger ones had no idea, but Kai, watching it click in his, in his eyes, you could tell. He's like, well, I have friends whose mom and dad got divorced. Are you guys going to get divorced? Oh, okay. And I'm like, yeah, buddy, we're going to get divorced. And he just, man, he just, he wasn't wailing or doing anything crazy, but you could tell right then and there that he just dropped.
In some ways that's worse.
It was way worse for me. Yeah. And then I sat there and, I talked to him over the coming months about, why things had to happen like that, and why they, why we're not together. And he's gotten a lot better at understanding it, but he still doesn't love it. He's always asking, he's like, well, does mom have a boyfriend, or does dad, are you dating someone? And even if I was, it's so hard to be like, yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah. Because he's only known mom and dad. Yeah. And so, man, it was the hardest thing. And, he started having nightmares and stuff like that. And that was it was a really tough thing for me to watch with him. It is a tough thing for me to watch with him, watching him get kind of heartbroken. He gets in his own head and he thinks that it's because of something that he did or said. And I'm like, Kai, that was our stipulation when we got, when we split. It's like, it's all the boys are hands down the most important thing. Yeah. Without question. And trying to show Kai that he was definitely not the reason. It had nothing to do with the kids, that it was just a matter of mom and dad growing apart, different people than when we were married. And yeah, I just, I just want to set that precedence for him, that he can talk about his mental health. You know what I mean? I know he's only 9, but he can talk about the issues and everything else that he has, or that he experiences. Because for me, I didn't even know anything about mental health growing up. Nobody ever talked about it. They talked, there's physical education, there's sex ed, there's, driver's ed, all these different types of, classes and stuff, growing, in high school and middle school. but nobody ever really discussed mental health.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing that I remember clear as day. And then I wish that they would have done differently, because I mean, shoot, man, we probably had 6 or 7 kids just from my high school class of 58 people kill themselves in the last decade.
Wow.
And so it's wild. Nobody ever taught anybody coping mechanisms and anything like that. And so it's and you never talked about it. You never talked about being sad. You're on a farm, get out there and do your work, and then go do your sports. Yeah. So
go bury it so it can come out when you're 45 years old.
That's what it is. That's exactly what it is. And I remembered when I had never talked to a therapist until about 3.5 years ago. And oh my goodness, the things that I had buried deep inside of me, I'm sure my therapist was just like, oh, what? Yeah. But I would sit there and talk the whole time. He'd ask me one question at the beginning, boom, I'd go off on my, I'd just go off, not yelling, being all, mad, but I would unload, you know what I mean? Because I've never unloaded like that before.
Yeah.
Never talked about it. And my father's never talked about it, about his stuff growing up, because he also had a lot of the same issues.
Yeah.
But my dad has never talked to his dad about those issues ever. And he's running out of time. You know what I mean? His dad's going to die here in the next couple years at best, if not, you know what I mean? If not sooner. So
yeah, it's interesting. I love that you brought the point up that you want your kids to be able to come and talk to you. And you said, my boy's only 9, so it's not like he's a teenage boy yet or anything. Right. But I realized something a few weeks ago. I work from home, and my little 3-year-old, he's like my mini me. And so it's like, he's always down here bugging me, And I caught myself like kind of snapping, like, hey, go upstairs, and he went up kind of pouting and went up and cried to his mom, and it made me feel bad. And I realized, how is he going to come talk to me when he's 16 if he learns at 3 years old that dad gets mad when you come and talk to him?
Yeah.
I promised myself from that moment on, I will never be mad or frustrated when he comes to talk to me. I'll communicate and explain, I'm working right now.
That's right.
I felt so stupid. And I came to that realization that, I've heard a lot of parents say, I just want my kids to be able to come and talk to me about anything. I think you need to be very aware of how you react every time they come and talk to you. Because it could be one time that you trigger a response and they're like, screw you.
Yep.
Never talking to you again.
That's exactly right.
So
I've noticed myself as of late, my 4-year-old, he's got a little bit of a speech delay. Mm-hmm. He's talking fine, but I mean, he's not where he should be. Right. And so he gets really frustrated when he can't tell us or his brother or his brothers or his mom what he needs and what he's so upset about. Cause there's always those few words that would fix everything. He just doesn't know them. And that really, it frustrates me. It doesn't frustrate me because he has the speech delay. What frustrates me is his reaction to not being able to tell you what he wants, because he freaks and he throws things, and he broke my ex's TV. This would have been 2 weeks ago. Big 80-inch TV, broke it, threw an Xbox controller through it. Just today, he's getting ready for school, grabbed some iPad or something and just launched it across the room. Luckily it didn't break, but man,
he'll be a good athlete.
He's a freak. He's a freak. I'll like wrestle with him and he gets so mad. He's like, no. And as he goes straight as a board, I'm like, what the?
If you can just channel that.
Yeah. I'm like, you're going to be a freak.
Yeah.
But, man, for me, it's trying to just figure out the best way to respond, right? Because for me, I know what I want to do. I want to get loud, get the dad voice, you know what I mean? Yeah. Because they do respond to the dad voice. Yeah. But I don't want, two things. I don't want them to become accustomed to it, and I also don't want them to fear me. You know what I mean? I want them to respect me as their father, as a father figure. And when they get older, I want them to respect me as a man.
Yeah.
And so it's just trying to figure out, how do you handle those freakouts and everything else, because that's the one thing for me, I would say, is my biggest downfall as a father is just trying to figure out how to handle that. Because I used to have a really, really short temper, and it was bad, so I know what that's like.
Yeah.
I've been there.
Yeah.
But, I've done some stuff as far as alternative medicine and things like that over the past few years, with the mental health struggles that I've had that have really helped me. And I've noticed myself not getting so spun up over things that didn't matter. But it's not like you can give your kid a clinical ketamine, treatment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like there's just got to be another way. And so I'm just trying to, I try to work my way through it, try to figure out, okay, well, how do I approach this? What can I do for him to help him be calm, relax and work his way through it? It's hard.
Yeah. Most kids look at their parents and are like, well, that dude has it all figured out. And then you get to be an adult and then you have your own kids and you're like, you realize like, man, my parents were just doing the best they could. They didn't have like a guidebook or anything. They were just figuring it out,
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think dads that really want to be better and really want to try to improve consistently are the hardest on themselves.
No question.
Right.
No question.
So how do you navigate like those self-doubts and dark times?
That's also a really good question. For me, I've noticed finding someone in my life that I can talk to when I'm having those struggles. That's what's helped me the most. I mean, my father, it's funny. My father now is, I'll talk to him about certain things that I'm going through and how I feel like I'm failing as a parent and everything else. And my dad has said the same thing that you just said. He's like, dude, nobody has it right. There's no single group of parents that has the parent handbook down. Yeah. It's all different. You know what I mean? There's no single relationship between a parent and a child that is the same with any other parent and child. None.
Yeah.
I look at the way that I parent each of my boys. It's a little bit different.
Yeah.
With my middle child, it's a little bit more direct because he doesn't respond to, someone getting stern and loud. My oldest, he's a little bit more sensitive. He understands, he's in touch with his emotions a little bit better. And so, he's the easy one, right? Because you can help those kids see, oh yeah, no, I need to calm down. I just need a minute. Cool. Go take a minute.
This last year has been an awesome journey for me, and I am now ready to take the Rad Dad brand to the next step, which is building out our website that'll offer a lot of free resources for dads and parents alike to just become better men and also connect with their spouses and children. So please like and subscribe to continue to follow us on our journey. Thank you.
But then, you know what I mean? They're all so different. And so for me, I like to call my dad. And then funny enough, I will call some of the SEAL contacts that I have, which is hilarious because they're SEALs, right? But they're some of the most caring, they're older SEALs, 58, 60 years old. They're some of the most caring and genuine people that you'll see in the world. They've been out of the teams for a lot of years, but I can call them really for anything, especially parenting issues. I can say, listen, man, how would Declan just punched this TV and busted it. What would you do? And you'd think every SEAL would be like, oh, you want to go beat his, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But they don't. They just say, they try to help you realize, say, okay, well, have you talked to him, try to find out what his issue was. He's like, you need to find out what the why was, what caused that. And it's funny because those guys are the ones that would calm me down the most. My dad would just kind of spin me up a little bit. I mean, I still have some certain issues with my dad. Some of the stuff he says just kind of irks me a little bit, but those guys, they're very analytical. They're problem solvers. SEALs are very intelligent individuals, and they will help you figure out a problem. And so I cherish those relationships. But for me, that's really it, man. Even my parenting style with my ex is very different. Right. So it's not like we're on the same boat with everything, but I feel like for most things we are.
Yeah.
So,
for the important stuff.
Yeah, exactly. But
man, if the toughest dudes in the world can have the self-realization and discipline to take a step back and analyze the situation, it's probably a good idea.
Oh yeah.
To practice, right?
That's right.
You should probably do that.
Yeah, they're great guys, man. They've got a lot of insight. I mean, both with business and everything else. I mean, shoot, this year's been probably one of the toughest years of my entire life. You know what I mean? And I don't know if I'd have been able to get through it without those guys. Yeah. One of their own team guys, I won't go into names or anything, but he stole a lot of money from me in a business venture. And yeah, come to find out this guy's on like a TSA watch list, has 3 active felony warrants. You know what I mean?
Jeez.
And so instead of me reacting and trying to get even and get back, they handled it. They were like, don't worry about this. We got you. And they handled it.
Really?
Yeah. So, you know, it's a good group to be a part of. I feel very fortunate, but you know, I never want to wrong those guys.
Yeah.
I want to stay on there.
Yeah. Stay on their good
graces.
side, man.
Yeah.
For sure.
No question, man.
So as a single father, what is a secret to the world that you know that few may know?
I don't know if it's a secret that few know, but I think a lot of people know it. I just don't think they use it or do it. And for me, it's spending time with the boys. You know, it's whatever that may look like. You know, instead of just giving them an iPad or just saying, "Oh, go play upstairs or go play outside with your friends."
Yeah,
it's taking the time to say, "Let's go outside." You know, roughhouse with your kids, man. Let them be boys. You know, they're going to make mistakes. No question.
Yeah.
Right. But it's going out, like for me, it's going out and doing things with them, because I noticed, you know, in the years past, I've noticed, you know, with me working from home and my ex working from home, there was a lot of, I mean, especially in the summer, there's a lot of just kind of hanging out, not doing anything.
Yeah.
And so making a point every night, if I have them, to go outside, go sit by the fire, go play tag or whatever it may be. That's the biggest thing. Shoot, man. I mean, I bought my boys an Xbox the other day because I was like, if you guys love your iPad, let me, you know, I grew up playing Xbox. I don't know how old you are, but like I played Xbox, you know, in high school and everything. I was like, let's do things together. Like I want to do these things with you, you know? And because again, once you start doing things like that with your boys, they start to realize, okay, my dad's also, you know, that's my dad, but I can also, if I need something, I trust him enough to go talk to him.
Yeah. I think most parents like want to do that, right? They want to get out with their kids. They want to be active. But I think what it comes down to is you have to be intentional, because if you think you're just going to do it in the moment, it's probably not going to happen. Like there's so many things weighing down on us as men. Come 6:30 p.m., like I bet most of us just want to watch a show, hang out, eat dinner, play on your phone. But if you're intentional and you catch yourself like, no, screw this, like let's go outside, let's go do stuff, then that's when the change happens. So
I equate it a little bit to working out, you know what I mean? Or taking care of your truck, your vehicle, whatever it is you have to make sure that you're on top of those things and make, like you said, make it a point, make it intentional to go out and spend that time with your boys or go do things. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. You don't have to spend any money, you know, but like if you want to do a little soda mix run or whatever it is, the new whatever, there's 100 of them.
Yeah, there is.
It's like just going there and getting them a small drink, and they love it. I mean, we'll go there, get just like 4 small root beers, and they just sit there and they just have the time of their life.
Yeah.
You know, they love being away from their iPads, even though they would never admit it. You know what I mean? But when you get them away, they're like, they're in the moment. They enjoy it, you know? So it's, I don't know, that's for me, that's what I would have as the secret, because I didn't really have that. I mean, having my dad was so busy. I couldn't get him, you know, I couldn't be like, hey, my dad wasn't even home enough for me to say, hey, can we go throw the ball? Can we go play catch? So I was playing with high school kids while I was in 6th grade. I go out and play catch with them in my yard, and, you know,
Yeah. Awesome. Well, to wrap up this episode, I ask all my guests the same question at the end. And that is, if there's one thing you want to leave with your kids when you're no longer here, what is that?
For me, I think it would be the ability to effectively and lovingly care for others and yourself, with yourself being at the forefront. Because for me, and again, man, my mental health issues, I've had some struggles, right? And, you know, the big thing that everybody's always told me was, it's the cliche thing. It's like, you cannot love anybody else until you know how to love yourself, or until you do love yourself. Yeah. And I always thought that was such BS until you start to realize, okay, yeah, you know, I really did not like myself. You know, I went through a phase where I hated myself. I did not want, you know, back when I was a cop, I was shaving in the shower. I didn't like looking in the mirror. You know what I mean? It was that intense. You know, it was kind of a self-loathing. And, you know, I went through all my went through my struggles, went through all these processes of self betterment or self improvement, and it was hard. It was really hard, but that's what I would leave with my boys is that exact thing, is love, learning how to love yourself, and then using that information or that power to turn around and love others and help them realize the same thing.
Yeah. I love that message. Thank you so much. Thanks for sharing your thoughts and experiences. And
absolutely.
I'm proud of you as a dad.
I appreciate that, man. Thank you.
You're well on your way to being a rad dad if you're not already. So.
I appreciate that, man. Thank you so much.
Thanks.